Good afternoon, Mr. Fuad. Please start. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mbak Emma. Distinguished all participants, ladies and gentlemen, the parallel session of 6 ICELIS will begin. We would like request you to please pay attention and mute the audio during the session so that it will be create conducive atmosphere to discover new knowledge. And once again, please be reminded to put your mobile phones into silent mode. Thank you. Sorry, all, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this parallel session, day 2, room meeting 3, and the theme environment. In this class, currently there are 8 presenters. Mrs. or Miss or Mr. Olivia Intan Berlian, Mr. Rizky Aulia Febriani, then Mr. Daniel Putra Pardamian, Mr. Jajang Gojali, Mrs. Siti Nurasikin Ismail, Mrs. Wahyu Sianingsih, Miss Aryani Zahara Kartini, and Mr. Kusnadi. First, I will check whether the all participants or all presenters are already joined this room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, complete. Before we begin the session, I have to remind you that presenters has around 10 minutes to deliver your speech or your paper, followed by 5 minutes for the discussion session. Okay, first presenter. This is Olivia Intan Berlia. Are you ready? Hello? This is Olivia Intan Berlian. Okay, because the presenter is not yet ready in this room, we shall continue to the next presenters. Miss or Mrs. Rizky Aulina Febriani. Halo. Oh, Olivia Intan Berliana, are you ready in this room? Okay. Please, I will. Good afternoon. You still mute your microphone. Mr. Jajang Ghazali, can you hear my voice?
Yes, I can hear, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jajang Ghazali. Are you ready to presenting your paper?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. Please welcome presenter for the paper with title Analysis of Building Permits and its Impact in South Jakarta, Indonesia. Please, Mr. Jajang Ghazali, time is yours.
Okay.
Your time 10 minutes.
Okay, sir. Thank you for this time. I want to good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon I will present my article entitled Analysis of Building Permits and its Impacts in South Jakarta, Indonesia. So this is my content of article. in four sections: introduction, methods, result, and discussion, and conclusions. So why did I take this title? Because I'm from the government of DKI Jakarta, and I am in development and special planning licensing service. So it attract my attention to answer my curiosity. What impact does the building permit that actually have an environmental sustainability? Then the second is, as we know, that development activities are have a large moral burden, especially related to environmental impacts. So uh, we must know about the effect of activity of building and its impact on environmental. And why South Jakarta? Because South Jakarta is part of DKI Jakarta province, which is in environmental analysis. It has many environmental degradation and maybe will sink in 2050 or sooner. We don't know. And DKI Jakarta is the capital city of Republik Indonesia, the center of business, economy, and social culture. And uniquely, Jakarta is surrounded by many rivers, and it is a wetland located in North Java Island, consisting of 5 administrative cities and 1 district. So because of there are so many rivers and tributary, it has many risks like flood or land subsidence or other. And Jakarta has it always experience increasing population density each year, including in South Jakarta. So from year to year, the total of population will increase, and the building has increased the number of building densities too. Because from Maslow theory, we know that building is the primary needs from humans to act and do their needs. And the increasing of building and population has increased disaster risk, that may be floods, landslides, and land subsidence. And in this diagram, we know that from year to year, there's so many increasing of flooding point from 2008 to 2018. But the flooding events, the flooding disaster from 2008 and 2017 count down and decrease. It's so many factor. Maybe the government will mitigation or other. So Gus Wahyono say it is necessary to have policy related to urban land development that can respond and control impact of urban development activities and urban activities. Do space use based permits, because we know human do everything in the land, and it has many environmental impact. And we know from ratification of law of the Republic Indonesia number 11 of 2020 concerning job creation is to ease people who want to submit their permit and do their own business. So it leads many change, very many change to permit in Indonesia, in Jakarta. And this is my mind mapping. So I start from thinking about urbanization, urban development, and economic growth, go to utilization of urban space, and it's connect to building and environmental permits. And the goals is mitigation of this disaster, and of course environmental sustainability and SDGs. And goal of SDGs is SDGs number 11, 13, 15, and 16. The methods that I use from this research is qualitative approach based on environmental science through in-depth analysis and descriptions through primary data and secondary data. So this is my result of research. First, from data that analysis from spatial analysis, we know that Jakarta, South Jakarta are indeed on relatively flat contours. So it has elevation to 20 to 80 meters above sea level, and from Panzuidam, we know that it is a lowland area. Then it has a risk to annual flooding and frequent flooding every years 2 years. And the second result is about the height of South Jakarta. The height of South Jakarta is higher than other areas in Jakarta. It has a 3% until 7% slope, and some point have a gradient of 85 until 13%. So from the slope with a rise of 3% to 7% in the soil slope with degrees 20 to 40, it has a characteristic with gentle slopes that has a low velocity mass motion of various periglacial and solid fusion. So it has more vulnerable character for soil surface erosion with intensive surface erosion. And the third result is South Jakarta dominated with 6 rivers, and we know that from this map, South Jakarta has a soil morphological condition contour to a higher place from the others, so it is not too risky for flooding. So from the special analysis, we know that actually in South Jakarta has a low flood vulnerability, but the morphological character of the land, the location of South Jakarta, which is surrounded by various rivers, streams, or tributaries, and the nature of the land, which have flat sloping contours and are dominated by spatial use in the form of dwelling of use, has consequences for possibilities of slum areas. So it can increase the tendency for South Jakarta to become an area with a rise of high flood disaster, primarily from the impact of building construction activities. And the result next is from the data, the primary data, there are 3232 application for building permits since 2015 until 1 March 2020. That we know that 67.49 it's we can issue the permit, but the other is cannot because there are so many violation like administration or technical, like there are not accordance in with the provision of special use. So so Jakarta is an urban city located in area with a contour typology that tends to be flat, with reasonably sloping soil morphology that flow with 6 tributaries and rivers, and the location is low risk vulnerability. But uncontrolled spatial use, especially spatial use projection following detailed spatial plan in DKI Jakarta, yang is more dominated by residential functions with a low risk control, can lead change in carrying capacity due to amount of open land in decrease, thus increasing the number of new hotspot of flood disasters. And from the number of permit, we can know that there's still many violation from spatial using in Jakarta and South Jakarta. So we know that there is a strong correlation between uncontrolled use of space permits, which has an impact of changing the morphology of urban built environment that happen in South Jakarta. This should be a focal point for the government, apart from strengthening the ease of business and investment to to special use control patterns before finally South Jakarta experience a critical phase in the risk of flooding that could be getting bigger. So this is my article. Maybe there's any question from the others. Thank you from the for the time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jajang Ghazali, for your great presentation. And we also have 5 minutes for the question and answer session, as well as giving the suggestion. I hope you can all participate actively. Dear audience,
Sorry, sir. The sound.
you may ask some question. Okay. Hello, any question for the audience?
Me.
Please, please.
Sorry, sir. I cannot hear the sound.
Hello,
Hello.
can you hear my sound?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, Mr. Jajang Ghazali.
Yes.
Is there a question from the audience? I have one question for you.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any specific condition required for implementing this research in another location, maybe another cities or another country? Please, Ms.
Okay. Maybe in in the other location that have same characteristic with South Jakarta, maybe it's urban cities and that's with flat contours and in wetland, in maybe in north or in the south in the island, it can be used this research. I think so.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jajang Ghazali. Maybe time is up. May give applause for Mr. Jajang Ghazali.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Rudi, for the presence.
Okay, the next presenters I call Mrs. Olivia Intan Berlian. Are you still join in this room? Hello? Mrs. Olivia Intan Berlian, can you hear my voice?
She responds.
She has no response. Okay. Because the presenter is not yet ready in this room, we shall continue the next presenters. I call Rizky Aulia Febriani. Halo? Oh, mau bervideo. Yeah. Okay, because Mr. Rizky Aulia Febriani cannot join in this room, he sent me a video and I will start this video. Please, Mbak Emma. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, because I have some trouble with techniques. I will continue to presentation for Mr. Agus Dendi Rohendi. Mr. Agus?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Agus Dendi, please welcome to our room, and are you ready to presenting your paper? And
Okay.
this time, Mr. Agus Dendi will presenting the paper with title Evaluation of Green Open Space Availability in Serang City. Time is yours, Mr. Agus.
Thank you for the send, sir. Good afternoon. My voice is clear.
Okay, very clearly.
Wait a minute. My presentation is present. Excuse me. My presentation is present.
Yes,
Okay,
Pak.
it's very clearly, Mr. Agus.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity given to us at the 6th ICNES conference in 2021. Okay, we will present a paper with the title Evaluation of Green Open Space Availability and in Serang City. My name is Agus Dendi Rohendi. I'm from Research Center for Oceanography, or LIPI, and our team is Daniel Putra Padamean and Mr. Doni. Mr. Daniel Putra Padamean from Research Center for Limnology and Doni from Research Center for Oceanography. Table of content for the first is forward, second method, third result and discussion, fourth is conclusion. Forward, the availability of green open space in Serang City in 2015 was 31.01%, at decrease compared to 00, which was 44.96%. This will allow a decrease in the availability of green open space in Serang City in 2020. This study was conducted to determine the availability of green open space in Serang City in 2020. NDVI, or normalized difference vegetation with Landsat A, band 3, and OIMAP was used to collect the record data. NPDI, or normalized difference vegetation index, is an index that describes the greenness of land. The vegetation index is a mathematical combination between the red band and the near infrared radiation band, which has long been used as indicator of the present and condition of vegetation. Descriptive analysis was used in this study to analyze the data obtained, but compare with the theory and result of previous study. This is map of Serang City, Banten Provinsi. We can look border by Serang Regency is the east, south, Japasi in the north, and there are 6 districts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Information or data to determine and evaluate the availability of green open space in Serang City with instrument called the NDVI, or normalized difference vegetation index. The analytical method used descriptive analysis. This method was chosen to describe the result obtained on previous theory in reference or previous study regarding to potential impact the will because we can look 6 sub-district: Curug, Cipocok Jaya, Kasemen, Serang, Tak-Takan, and Holantaka. Result and discussion. In figure, we can look map and of land cover type Serang City, Banten Provinsi, was processed by NDVI, and the result is Serang City is boundary clear, water body, high density settlement, low density settlement, green space, and wet field or WF. The result data is high density settlement is 45.15%. Low density settlement is 21.83%. Green space 23.34%. Wet field 6.62%. And water body 8 to 3.16%. Result and discussion. We can look before and after. Green space before is 68.99%, and green space area is 31.01%. Until 2020, non-green space is 76.66%, and green space area is 23.34%. We can look increase and decrease about 7.67%. Conclusion. The availability of green open space in Serang City in 2020 has decreased and even below the minimum limit of green open space availability in area. This is due to the increasing intensity of community activity in Serang City, thus reducing the availability of green open space. This condition can lead to the potential for flood disaster, and also have the potential to increase the intensity of heat in Serang City. Therefore, it is necessary to make serious and correct effort to restore the availability of green open space in Serang City to a sustainable extent so as not to cause ecological impact that have implications for future economic and social impact. This is our reference. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuad.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Agus, for your great presentation. So we have about 5 minutes to discussion session. Dear audience, you may ask some question or giving the suggestion for this presentation, please. Hello, any question from the any question from the audience? Okay. If there is no question from the audience, Mr. Agus, I have one question for you, Mr. Agus.
Okay, please.
Okay. What is your future study for developing this research, Mr. Agus?
Your voice is not clear. Please again.
Sorry. What is your future study for developing this research?
We compare after and before.
Okay.
Jadi before 2015 to after 2020.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Agus, for your answer. May I give applause for Mr. Agus?
Thank you, Mr. Fuad. for the sand.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Next presenter, let me introduce Mrs. Alivia Intan Berlian. Halo, Mrs. Alivia Intan Berlian. Not the respond. Mrs. Siti Nurasikin Ismail. Halo.
Hello. Yes.
Okay.
Good
Hello.
afternoon.
Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, please, Mrs. Siti Nurasikin Ismail, please welcome to our room, and Mrs. Siti Nurasikin Ismail will presenting her paper with title Zonation of Microphytes based on bathymetry analysis at Kenderoh Reservoir. Okay, Mrs. Siti Nurasikin, time is yours, about 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuad. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon, everyone. My name is Siti Nurasikin Ismail. I'm from University Science Malaysia, Penang. And today I would like to present our manuscript entitled Zonation of Microphytes based on bathymetric study at Cenderoh Reservoir, Perak. Okay, first of all, Perak River is located in Perak, Peninsula Malaysia, the second largest river basin after Wahab River. Okay, and Cenderoh Reservoir is located along the Perak River. It was a man-made lake used for hydroelectric power generation and was commissioned in 1930. It was the second oldest dam in Malaysia. And the changing land use of forest clearing increases in Hulu Perak towards Hilir Perak includes the agriculture land, urbanization and industrial land has resulted in massive amounts of sedimentation along the Perak River. As you can see, we have another 3 dams upper side, up north than Cenderoh Reservoir. That is Kenering, Bersia and Temenggung. Okay. This is my study site, Cenderoh Reservoir, Perak. It is located surrounded by the perkampungan, by the village. Okay. And features of Cenderoh Reservoir, it has natural forest within the catchment area, the riparian vegetation, especially like pandanus and more grasses, something like that. And the land use also for agriculture activities such as oil palm plantation, rubber plantation, and some rice field. Okay, and in the reservoir itself, it has also a few aquaculture activities, especially tilapia aquaculture. And at the bottom, it is the example of settlements around the lake because it has a few small villages. Okay, so here the problem statement is that from the previous study, it shows that the environment have become shallow and reproductive due to shallowness and more extensive littoral zone, and it caused the water flow to become slow and higher cultural eutrophication from the surrounding area. And from the map, it indicated the changes to the margin and littoral zone of the reservoir due to shoreline sedimentation and growth of littoral aquatic macrophytes such as Hydrilla, Ceratophyllum, Phragmites, and Nymphaea. Okay, and the weed growth and water plants such as water lily and water hyacinth also indicated that the lake is experiencing eutrophication due to land use management from the oil palm plantation and rubber plantation. And wild plant and weeds on the edge as well as inside the lake will cause eutrophication and the death of some species due to oxygen shortage, such as the fish and a few benthic species. And Tenaga Nasional Berhad, our hydroelectric power Berhad also spend millions of ringgit for the lake maintenance in destroying part of the biomass and weeds to restore the lake. Because this Cendero reservoir made for hydropower electric generation, so any overgrowth of weed species would cause the maintenance. Okay, so the objective of this study is to determine the distribution of macrophyte based on zonation and area covered by the construction of bathymetric map at Cendero Reservoir. Alright, so based on the methodology, the lake morphometry analysis was carried out in February 2016 and followed up in April 2017 to study the lake morphometry and bathymetric mapping by acoustic method was used to obtain topographic light map showing the shape and elevation of the lake features. Okay, for the zonation of macrophyte, we use sonar sensor which placed 30 centimeters under the water. We use to map the macrophyte based on the GIS using UpMap. And we also did the macrophyte sampling based on line transect and plant population. We use quadrat method, as you can see here. Okay, and the data were analyzed using cluster analysis to group the plant based on the range of the depth found in Cendero Reservoir. So basically, the result generated from the UpMap, as is shown here, the darker shade shows deeper depth of the area. Like here, the maximum depth is 35 meter near to the dam, and the water level was 59.85 meter above water sea level. And the total area of reservoir was about 14 kilometers. And the volume recorded was 47.9 to the power 10 to the power of 6 cubic meter, and the perimeter of the reservoir was around 184.5 kilometer. Okay, this is the map we generated based on the UpMap, the contour map showing all the depth in Cendero Reservoir. Okay, we recorded 34 macrophyte species, representing 31 genera and 19 families. There are 4 types of the plant: emergent, floating leaf, submerged, and free floating. And based on cluster analysis, so that all the macrophyte species were grouped into a few clusters based on their depth values. Okay, as for the discussion, the macrophyte species distribution and diversity were associated with the general function of water level fluctuation, effects of the seasonality changes in hydrology and physical-chemical characteristics. And then the zonation of macrophyte in my study represent based on the bathymetric analysis, it shows that the microphyte were grouped into few clusters, particularly following their own types, such as emergent, floating leaf, submerged, and free floating, based on the depth range of the reservoir. And some species of different type were grown together, and grouped together was probably due to sufficient light exposure in similar water depth characteristic, such as the pandanus, which we also can found a few submerged species such as hydrilla. So because plant, it demands sufficient light exposure for photosynthesis. In here, we can see that the water depth play a major role, where the submerged species the submerged species will survive where it can receive light exposure. And the bathymetric result in this study indicated that the emergent and submerged macrophytes were distributed according to the depth of the littoral area, hence defining different zonation of macrophyte. Because littoral area is the area where it receives sufficient amounts of light. And the emergent macrophyte mainly colonize the shallowest portion of littoral zone of the main river, where the wave effects tend to be higher. And the floating leaf and submerged macrophyte were dependent on light availability, which has been demonstrated to stimulate both seed germination and seed development at euphotic zone with sufficient light for photosynthesis. And the free-floating macrophyte were dependent on flow and carried away by flood paths. Free-floating macrophyte does not show any special zonation because it don't anchor their roots in the sediment. And nevertheless, the macrophyte species cluster will help in regulation of flow direction, sedimentation, localization, and riverbank deterioration protection in the reservoir. Okay, as for the conclusion, for my study, the macrophyte species distribution was characterized by the slope or gradient of the reservoir from the bathymetric data. The bathymetric study identified Inchendero Reservoir as having lithic and lenthic environment, which significantly determine the macrophyte species distribution and diversity. And the morphometric characteristic also, particularly water depth, result in macrophyte zonation, that the macrophyte according to the type, such as emergent, floating leaf, submerged, and free-floating macrophyte. And the habitat influenced by the depth variation can be identified by the distinguished life form along the gradient, which was dependent on the light availability. Okay, this is some of our reference. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you. Do you have any question? Okay, that's all from me, I think. Thank you for listening.
I'm sorry, I still unmute. Thank you, Mrs. Siti Nurhasikin, for your presentation. We have about 5 minutes for question and answer session. Maybe any question from the audience? If there is any question, I have one question for you, Mrs. Siti Nurhasikin.
Yes.
What is the urgency of doing this research? Why did you have to do it?
Okay. Because Cenderoh Reservoir is meant for hydroelectric power, and it also one of the shallowest reservoir in Malaysia, with the mean depth at 5 meter, as compared to another reservoir such as Temenggo Reservoir, Kenyir Reservoir, which they have a very depth. The depth was around 50 meter. Cenderoh Reservoir is the shallowest reservoir we have in Malaysia. So due to its shallowness, and also the sedimentation occurred, so a lot of microphytes problem were occurred in this reservoir. So the authority were facing problems to eliminate this weed species. We call it weed because it is unwanted. They don't want this microphyte to grow in the reservoir because it will affect the amount of water stored in the reservoir. So that's why I conducted this study, the bathymetric study, so that we can identify which part of the reservoir that should we focus for monitoring program to remove the weed species, so that this reservoir can sustain and still can deliver a good health for the environment also, and also generate the sufficient amount of power for hydroelectric power.
Okay, thank you for your answer and your explanation, Mrs. Siti
Okay.
Nurhasikin.
You're welcome.
Maybe the time is up. Please give big applause to Mrs. Nurhasikin Ismail.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because there are currently 3 presenters who are unable to present, there are Mrs. Alivia Intan Berlian, Mr. Rizky Aulia Febriani, and Mrs. Wahyusra Ningsih. We will play videos from them in sequence. Please, Miss Emma, can you start this video, Miss Emma? Okay.
Excuse me, please. The presentation.
Okay, Mrs. Nurhasikin, can you stop your screen?
Distribution pattern in the COVID-19 era in Creosup Watershed Basin, Semarang City. Semarang is the area with the highest COVID-19 case in Central Java, reaching 37,991 cases. So the government implements PPKM, or enforcement of community activity restriction, to control the rate of transmission. The limited mobility of society forces people to adapt a changing consumption pattern. To reduce direct interaction, people reduce the shopping frequency and also choose to order food through the GoFood, so that the use of plastic is increasing. Without proper waste management, plastic dumped into river, including in Creosote watershed basin, will increase. The purpose of this study was to analyze and compare the types of distribution of plastic waste in the Creosote watershed basin sediment. Sample taken from 17 locations using purposive sampling and sampling area around 1 square meter. Type of plastic are categories according to Van Emmerik classification into 7 categories. This study used a survey method with a qualitative descriptive approach. Total amount of plastic waste found are 243 particles, and no one of these locations are free from plastic waste. The average abundance of plastic waste is 6 to 24 particles per square meter, with the tendency to increase from upstream to downstream. As we can see in the picture, in the upstream, plastic waste average is 12. The highest accumulation is in site 5 and 6, reaching 20 particles per square meter. Site 5 is located in Purwosari, is an order 2 river and pastoral 11 settlement, while Site 6 is located in Cepoko, Gunung Pati, is an order 1 river and pastoral 7 settlement before the sampling location. The least plastic waste amount in the upstream found in Site 1, which is an order 1 river and pastoral 4 settlement. In the midstream, the average of plastic waste found is 12.8 or higher than the upstream. The closer to the downstream, the amount of plastic waste found in midstream is increasing. Although it is not in settlement area in set 11 and 12, the microplastic reached 18 particles per square meter and become the highest in the midstream. Because the river in both locations become the water source for Jatibarang Reservoir, so that the plastic waste from this location can accumulate in the reservoir, which serve as one of the water source for PDAM or Municipal Drinking Water Company. The downstream area in Creosote watershed development into settlement, industrial, and agricultural area. The average of plastic waste in this area is 20 particles per square meter, higher than in the upstream or midstream. The highest plastic waste amount was 24 particles per square meter in site 17 and 14 and located at Order 3 River in densely populated area in southern Gunung Pati. Plastic waste found in upstream part was mostly plastic bags. In midstream, plastic waste was dominated almost the same as upstream but found in larger quantity. And the downstream, the highest waste are found. The most plastic waste found is different from upstream and midstream because in downstream dominated by food wrapping. Most of the food wrap found at the research site were seasoning wrappers, cooking oil, instant noodle, milk, instant coffee, and children's snack wrapper. The type of plastic waste in this study were classified according to Van Emmerik. In the upstream part, the type of plastic waste found were dominated by PO soft type, followed by multi-layer. In the midstream, the largest type of plastic waste, PO soft, around 51%, and multi-layer, around 41%, and in the downstream, the multi-layer type dominates. The dominant types of plastic waste found at the research site are PO soft and multi-layer, which are mostly made of PI and PP. The most common microplastic polymer found in various studies that have been carried out are PS, PE, and PP, so that the type of plastic waste in the Creosote watershed basin can be a source of microplastic pollution in the future. Based on the explanation above, it can be concluded that the distribution of plastic waste in the sediment of the Creosote watershed tend to be higher from upstream to downstream. The highest amount is found in the river that pass through many residential areas. Even though the location is not in residential location, the amount of plastic waste found can be high, especially the type of plastic waste that is light and easy carried away by river currents. Most of the food wrapping found at this research were wrapping for daily food items and wrapping for hygiene material and plastic bag. It indicates that most plastic waste come from household activity from settlement along the river, with sediment discharge reaching approximately 1,394 ton per day. The average plastic waste found in this study reaching 14.29 particles per square meter. The content of plastic waste passing through the river in the Creosote watershed basin is quite large. If the plastic waste in the Creosote watershed is not handled seriously, especially those from PS, PP, and PA, it will become a source of microplastic pollution in the future and will cause danger because it will affect the quality of Semarang City raw water source taken from the Jatibarang Reservoir. That's my presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Wahyu, for your video. And the next session is discussion. Maybe any question from the audience, please? Hello? If there is no question, maybe I will play the next video. Mbak Emma, please start the next video.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the time. Introduce myself. My name is Olivia Berlian. Will present my article entitled Analysis of Water Quality and Environmental Health List of Copper to Fish in Progo River Magelang Regency. Table of content. There are introduced, method, result, and discussion and conclusion. Introduce. Utilities of Progo River as a source of irrigation for agricultural land, fisheries, public daily needs, and will also affect the quality of river water. Progo River water quality in 2016 is moderately polluted, in 2017 is lightly polluted, and 2019 is heavily polluted. The result of preliminary studies for water quality, especially of copper parameter, exceed the class 2 water quality criteria with a result of 0.26 mg per liter upstream and 0.21 mg per liter in the middle. High concentration of copper in the water can accumulate in biota fish and can have an impact to human health. Method, there are design study, descriptive, quantitative with environmental health list analysis. Subject and object, their subject in the study consist of 34 people who consume fish from Progo River and the object of research, namely water and fish. Subject selection based on inclusion criteria and the objects using grape sampling. Technical approved by Health Research Ethics Committee, Faculty of Public Health, Diponegoro University, Indonesia. General description of resource location. There are 3 sampling locations: upstream in Bandungan District, middle in Tempuran District, and the downstream in the Luar District. In the upstream are dominated by food industry, livestock, and workshop. In the middle are dominated by industry of food, glove, and workshop. In the downstream are dominated by food industry, hospital, workshop, and sign mining. River water quality of the 7 parameter test. There are several parameters that exceed the standard, namely copper and total suspended solid in the upstream and middle area. Copper, biological oxygen demand, chemical oxygen demand, and total suspended solid are exceed the downstream area. Concentration of copper in Bangfis. The concentration of copper in Bangfis from Progo River exceed the FAO/WHO quality standard. There's of 0.02 milligram per kilogram, SNE 0.3 milligram per kilogram, and the maximum limit of copper level allowed in food in 1.0 milligram per kilogram. Exposure analyzed. The health effect of copper that go insect digestion include the non-carcinogenic category with the dose of the ingested water expressed as reference dose FD 0.0371 milligram per kilogram per day. The calculation used the coefficient of variance COV with its standard deviation divided by the mean. If COV more than 20% is considered abnormal because it used the median. If COV less than 20%, the distribution is considered normal so that it can use the mean. Variable distribution of concentration, advance intake, frequency of consumption, and duration of exposure are abnormal, and the weight is normal. From this data, example of calculating real-time and lifetime copper intake as follows. And the distribution of copper intake value based on the example of calculating real-time and lifetime projection can be seen. Risk characterization. The equation of the intake value and RFD will produce the risk characteristic value. Exampling of calculation of the RK value for the people who eat bangfish from Progo River, real-time and lifetime. So people who consume bangfish from Progo River for real-time exposure projection are safe for 34 people with a risk level of RK less than 1 for non-carcinogenic lifetime projection with an estimate 30 years of exposure is unsafe for 1 person with a risk level of RK more than 1 and safe in 33 people with a risk of level of RK more than 1. Assuming that only one fish sample is taken and its sample location. And risk management. Risk management can be done by continuing giving attention to the heavy metal safe limit concentration that have been set and setting the limit of the intake rate, frequency of consumption of safe exposure for people who consume bangfish using the following equation. So, the calculation result for duration of exposure to 30 years safe intake rate is 2,481.87 gram per day, and the frequency of consumption safe exposure is 180 days per year. Discussion. Analysis of Progo River is Progo water quality has been polluted with parameters that exceed the quality standard, which are copper, BOD, COD, and TSS. There are some factors that cause pollution and high concentration in the downstream. In the flow to the downstream, there are many livestock, both industry and settlement. In addition, there are also sand mining areas, chisels, and downstream areas, the accumulated place of the previous pollution loop. And exposure analysis. The exposure analysis origin from natural activity or people activity that pollutes river with copper concentration in the water exceeding the quality standard. This affect the development of aquatic plant that required copper. Microalgae are often eaten by fish, causing bioaccumulation of copper in bonefish. And the high concentration of copper in fish also relate to copper level in the water and fish habit. The location of the respondent resident, which is near to the river, affect the intake into the body because it is easy to get the access to fishing. In fact, the greater the intake rate, the greater the risk level for experiencing health problems. Body weight can affect the health risk. In fact, the greater a person's body weight, the smaller health risk analyze a problem due to the copper content in fish. People who have RQ more than one can have a probability of health effect. Non-carcinogenic health risk analysis that occur when exposed to copper or exceed 0.0 and 11 milligram per kilogram can cause symptoms of gastrointestinal disorders such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach when ingest acutely. Risk management that can be done is by determining safe limit for the frequency of consumption of safe exposure and the rate of safe intake. Organize and implementation cross-sectional approach to institutions or units that have the potential to control pollution, such as the Magelang District Environmental Health. Control or supervise all activity from the planning, organizing, and implementing process so that can the manage of health risk control run smoothly. In conclusion, Progo River has been polluted by several parameters that exceed the quality standard. The level risk in real time for respondent is safe, RQ less than 1, and one respondent in non-carcinogenic lifetime condition 30 years is not safe. 1.0 and 80 milligram per kilogram, RQ more than 1. Assuming the source of exposure to copper is only from fish and not calculated from other sources. Analysis of health risk on long-term exposure can cause symptoms of gastrointestinal. People can reduce the amount of the fish consumption from the Progo River by referring the limit of safe intake rate and the safe frequency consumption with the same consumption pattern for adults. Thank you for the percentage.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Emma. From the two videos that have been played, please, if you have any question from the audience, Mrs. Wahyu Setianingsih, are you still in this room?
Yes, Pak Fuad, thank you for your help.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Mrs. Olivia still in this room too. Okay,
Yes.
please, if any question from the audience. Oh, I think there is no question from the audience. The next video, Mbak Emma, please start the video from Miss or Mrs. Rizky Aulia.
Miss Rizky Aulia.
With air quality warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thanks to Dr. Fuad Muhammad and the other presenter. I'm Rizky Aulia Febriani will explain the result of my result entitled Effect of the Number of Transportation Mode and Industrial Closure with Air Quality on Large-Scale Social Restriction during COVID-19 pandemic in Jakarta. Introduction in our research is the COVID-19 pandemic has spread throughout the world, the Indonesia government industrial restriction, or in Indonesia it's called PSBB.
Sorry, Mr. Fuad. The screen is freeze.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Emma. Thank you to Ibu Wahyu Setianingsih, Pak Bu Alivia Intan Berlian, and Ms. Rizky Aulia Febriani that deliver their paper in video format. We have about 5 minutes for the question and answer discussion. Maybe any question from the audience? Please raise your hands. Okay, if there is no question, I think the session from three presenter is up. Please give big applause to Ibu Wahyu Setianingsih, Ms. Alivia Intan Berlian, and Mbak Rizky Aulia Febriani. Finally, the last presenter, Ms. Aryani Zahara Kartini, are you still in this room?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aryani.
Yes.
Please welcome the last presenters. Ms. Aryani will present the paper with title Knowledge, Attitudes, and Practice of Housewives as Members of the Environmental Community Against Household Food.
Wait.
Okay. Oh, okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
thank you for my supervisor, and then thank you for my participant, and thank you my chair room. My name is Aryani Zara Kartini. I am from Universitas Indonesia. I wanna share with about my research. My topic research is knowledge, attitude, practice, housewife as member of the environmental community against household food waste management. This is my outline. My outline divided for term, introduction, methods, result, and implication, and the last conclusion. You know about the 1/3 of the food produced for human consumption, equivalent to 1.3 billion tons each year, becomes food waste. If there's no action for this situation, I think it could be a serious problem because that disrupt our ecosystem. So how about Indonesia? Indonesia resulted in 61.40% waste is become food waste. In fact, government has formulated regulation, and the regulation contained in Regulation of the President of the Republic of Indonesia, number 197. The regulation contained is government would like to reduction of household waste until 30%, and then handling of household waste until 70%. As we know that the food waste originating from household is influenced by the rule of household. According to Kai Fu-Far, said that women lean to produce more food waste than men. But in another side, people realize that we have to solve this problem. So many people make environmental community. So that's why I choose this research, and my purpose is to analyze knowledge, attitude, and practice of housewife as a member of the environmental community to manage food waste in daily life. This is my method. My method approach is qualitative. My location of research in Jakarta. Why I choose this location? Because Jakarta, based on data, the percentage of poor people in Jakarta in 2019 was 2.70%, being in the third lowest position. But in another side, Jakarta produced 1,600 tons per day, and then the 44% of the overall waste is become food waste. So it's very ironic situation. So I choose this Jakarta, and the specific place I choose the Pondok Labu district. Why I choose the Pondok Labu district? Because the Pondok Labu district always become reference from government to make a new program. My research time September until October, and my sampling technique use non-probability saturation technique. My sample 25 household was obtained from all members of Berseri West Bank. Why I choose the Berseri West Bank? Because this West Bank established in 2014, and then the West Bank it's popular because had been shown by television until 3 times, and then it's too many districts in Jakarta corporate with the Berseri West Bank. This is my result and implication. In my research, I divided food waste into 2 types: unpackaged and packaged. Unpackaged it means like fresh food. Based on the result of research in graph 1, the average participant contribute 3 to 7 grams a day per person of unpackaged food waste, while 24 grams a day per person of packaged food waste. Why I divided per person? Because we know that the family family has 4 until 5 members. So I divided per person. Okay. This is my result during FGD processing because I use qualitative method. You can see the brown font is mean the question to ask the participant, and the italics italic font is a statement from the participant. Based on this statement, we know that the participant know about the composition of the product, but they don't know about the difference between best before and expired date. As we know, that is a difference meaning between best before and expired date. So they don't know is the food feasible to eat or not. So how about the last processing? I think like food waste, they know about the what meaning liquid and solid compost, but they don't know about the how to treat food waste to become compost. Maybe half people know, but another people doesn't know about this. This is sorry. This is my attitude statement. This is this is attitude research. Based on the statement, we know that they concern about the composition of the product about food, but but this is a statement influenced by they just want to buy food according what their family need, but not their family their family like, not but they family need. So that's why they just spend their money to what the food family like, not family need. So it could be one reason why the food waste is high, but they still ensure expiration date on each product, and then also motivate their self and their family to work together to reduce food waste. This is about practice statement. Participant read information related to product consumption and expiration date on social media and news and another else, but they also immediately cook and consume a food if the validity date of the food is only a few days. But based on the knowledge statement, they don't know about what's the difference between best before and expired date. So yeah, so that's why sitting there, I want to give the best. They also say that I want to give the best food product for my family. So if the validity date of the food is only a few days, they prefer to throw away the food into garbage, something like that. So the reason why the food waste can be high. So how about they spared food waste or not? They of course spared food waste from its packaging when throwing it in the trash, because they are food waste bank members. As we know that as we know that they learn about how to separate food waste from its packaging, because that packaging would be make it money. So, but how about making compost from food waste? Based on the knowledge, they don't know about how making compost how making food waste to be compost. But maybe half people know, but they prefer to don't doing like that, because they still because they think it's better if I spend my money to buy food, then more than I spend my money to composter. And then we know why they don't know about how to treat food waste to become compost, because based on their environmental community, they just waste bank community is not about the specific goals to reduce food waste, just to reduce plastic to make environmental better than before. And this is my conclusion. The average participant contribute 3 to 7 grams a day per person of unpackaged food waste, while 24 grams a day per person of packaged food waste. And then the result of the study state that knowledge, attitude, and practice were related in decision in determining what type of food are appropriate for them and their families to consume and why and which food should be discarded. Thank you for having me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Aryani, for your great presentation. We have about 5 minutes for the session for discussion. Maybe is there any question from the audience, please? Okay, if there is no question, Miss Haryani, I have one question for you.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
What is the implication of your research to the society or to our company, Mrs. Aryani?
Based on this research, we know that if the environmental community doesn't realize that to manage food waste is important, so how about the another side? It means the non-members environmental community. So so that's why I just want to know about I just want to know the participant concerned or not to manage food waste, but in this case they do not concern about to manage food waste.
Okay, thank you for your answer, Ms. Aryani.
Yes, sir.
Give applause to Ms. Aryani, please. Dear ladies and gentlemen, all participants, all presenters have presented their papers, and it's time for closing this class. But before class closes, we will take a picture together. Please, for all participants, would you like to turn on your camera? There is some participant in this room. Mbak Emma and okay, Mrs. Siti Norasiki, would you like to turn on your camera? Ms. Rizky Aulia and Ms. Alivia Intan, would you like to turn on your camera? Oh, there is response for her. Mbak Emma and Mbak Desi, can you help me to take a picture? Okay, thank you for your kind attention during this session. I hope we can get benefit and increasing our knowledge from every research that presenters had shared today. And please give applause for all of us. Thank you. And see you next time. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for sami-sami Bu. Mohon izin nggih. Mohon keluar.
He's back. He's like